welcome to this series of podcasts focused on innovation. What I wanted to do was that maybe start with a quick introduction about yourself, the kind of work that you do, and then we'll delve deeper into the world of AI innovation, how India can play a part in that.
Thanks for having me, Amit. It's a delight to be here. So my name is Shez Partovi. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Royal Philips. I'm a physician by background. I trained as a physician, practiced for about 10 years, and then moved over to technology, and I've been here at Philips for about almost 5 years now. And so it's a delight to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Perfect. Pleasure is all ours. I'll do a quick introduction. My name is Amit Kumar. I'm a managing director and partner with BCG based out of Delhi and have the pleasure of working with many leaders like you. Just to kick this off, let's begin with the bigger picture. Philips' stated purpose is to improve lives of 2 billion people by 2030. With innovation as your remit, what are the unique challenges and opportunities that you see in this journey?
We are in a very unique time in history where we have such a high demand for care as the patients are aging, as society is aging, and you have more people with chronic conditions and diseases requiring more attention and care. And at the same time, we live in a world where, unfortunately, there's not enough physicians and nurses and other people, allied healthcare workers. And so you have this imbalance between a high demand for care as we all age and not enough doctors and nurses to provide that care. And this imbalance leads to long patient wait times, leads to challenges and burnout for physicians, overwhelmed and overworked. And so those are the challenges that we're facing. And at Philips, when we look at this problem, we see that there's really no way for society to recruit its way out of this problem. There just aren't enough doctors and nurses. You can't just produce them out of nothing. And so, but we're also very fortunate at this moment in history, if you will, that we have an incredible technology in AI that actually may be able to help bridge that gap between the increase in demand and not enough supply. And so at Philips, our focus with our goal of improving the health and well-being of individuals all over the world is to give clinicians time to care. Our goal is to create technology that doesn't just give products, gives productivity. And so that means that the physicians and nurses that are working today are focusing on the things that touch patients and not spending their time on things that are less productive and administrative, if you will. And so from our point of view, the vision is to improve productivity, to give time to care for clinicians. And we use technology in every shape and form we can with AI embedded to doctors and nurses. And by the way, it also applies to consumers and patients because even in our own care of ourselves, Philips, we have a big personal health franchise. And it's also about giving ourselves the capabilities and tools to care for ourselves because you're not always with a doctor.
No, very, very thoughtful. And I think so. This reminded me of one of the comments you made that innovation is like painkillers and not vitamins, right? Will be good to hear your
Yeah.
perspective on that.
Basis of that comment is because you need to focus on the problem of the end customer you're trying to solve and take away that pain point. And a big part of the pain point today is they just don't have enough time. At Philips, the DNA of the way we innovate sort of has three parts to it. The first part of the DNA of how we innovate is we really start with the patient and the people problem, the problem at the bedside, for example. We don't start from the technology and go forward, but from the problem and go backwards. So that's part one of our DNA is focus on people and patient-centric innovation. The second part of the pillar of how we innovate is that co-create the solution. So that's why we embed innovators with clinical partners. We embed innovators. They go to the bedside. They walk the hospitals. They're in the workflow of the doctors and nurses. So as you're trying to solve that problem, you're really working shoulder to shoulder with those that ultimately end up using the system. So you're innovating together. So that's part two, is to co-create with clinical partners. And we have clinical partners all over the world. And then the third part of our DNA is that when you're at the bedside and you're co-inventing with doctors, you want to make it so that it has the maximum impact. And that means that we look at innovations that scale, that define a standard in an industry. And when you look at, for example, our patient monitoring, our technology and our patient monitoring is in 1 in 2 hospitals in the United States. So these are scale technologies that have massive impact. And so we start with the patient, we work with the doctors and nurses, and we want it to scale. And this is how we bring painkillers if
Mhm.
you will, to the bedside and focus on it. The last thing I'll say is that, one of the quotes I always use that at Philips, we invest in our customers' problems, not just in our ideas.
And one of the things that you mentioned is that how what I heard is that a lot of innovation is happening, problem solving is happening in an interconnected manner, and there's something that we've also seen that commercialization of a technology which used to take 5 to 7 years today gets done in
Hmm.
2 years, 2.5 years. It's all digital. It's all interconnected. How have you seen the entire innovation ecosystem change? Right, will be good to hear your perspective given that you've been actually doing this for a couple of decades.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Amit. The pace of innovation globally has just taken off, and particularly, of course, with the advent of agentic AI and generative AI. And so, what we see with this pace of innovation increasing is that we also have to think about talent upskilling, and talent recruitment, because at the end of the day, you have a great talent. We have a great talent base at Philips. But as the innovations, both in the way you innovate and the technologies come up, we are looking to see how we can, within the organization, make sure that we bring the capabilities, whether they are here already or whether they're ones that we have to develop. So for us, one of the most critical things that we see is actually talent management, talent recruiting. In this age of generative AI, all these technologies require the kinds of skills that may already be in the organization or you have to bring in. So that's the first thing, is the talent base to be able to innovate needs to be upskilled and recruited. And then the other shift in mental model is that as the technology advances, you have to be okay with experimenting because the pace is happening so fast and new innovative ideas or young companies that you want to partner with or just technologies that become available are rapidly changing. You have to be open to the idea that you want to experiment, and if it works, you double down. If it doesn't work, you pivot or you shut it down. And so, whereas the long arc that you mentioned used to be the sort of the way that passed the long arc, now there are these much more faster innovation cycles. So it's both what we see as really changing in a way is both the talent, the skill, but also the mechanisms of innovation change as the pace of innovation goes up.
Very interesting. I think so. This brings me to the aspect that as I look at your products, right? Increasingly, you are a software first company, right? The way the technology is implemented, the way the technology is exposed to the physicians or even the customers. Tell me more about it. How that shift has been. It's not an easy one.
You're absolutely right that there is, in fact, when we look at the technology that we can embed to bring that productivity, a lot of it is workflow based, and a lot of workflow technology is optimized by software. That's why, for example, over 50% of our R&D engineering workforce globally is now focused on software and data and AI. I mean, that's an incredible number. Over 50% are all focused on software and data and AI. That brings into our entire value chain within Philips is even our hardware is often now software defined. I'll give you an
Mm.
example. So, for example, an MRI scanner, which you think is a big piece of iron that comes and put in a department, and it's a piece of hardware. We worked with one of our customers said to us, "Look, I bought this MR scanner, I got it, but I need to, can you add something to it that it can work faster, that it sees more patients? I don't want to change the MR scanner. Can't you just help me just have it see more patients faster?" And so we worked with that university, which was Leiden University Medical Center in the Netherlands. And we built a neural network software that when you add to the MRI, it's called Smart Speed, is what we called it. It can scan 3 times faster, or
Wow.
yeah, or with the same hardware, or 65% higher resolution. That's an example where software redefined the hardware that the customer had already purchased. And so now you sort of put a USB stick in, you upload the software, and suddenly the same machine that you had is scanning 3 times faster. And so you are seeing this idea that software is increasingly defining what the hardware can do. Now, by the way, hardware is never going away. It's beautiful. It means amazing things. We love making hardware. But we are seeing the ability that you pointed out, that the ability to become advancing the hardware technology by optimizing and innovating on the software and AI side that goes in it. So to me, smart speed is a great example in which we have our hardware be defined by the software that we add to it, which is why we have so much focus on software and data and AI.
Very interesting. If I have to sort of get some of your insights into as you think about next, let's say, 3 to 5 years, right? You already spoke about briefly about the role that AI can play. What are some of the technologies, right, that you believe will further transform the entire healthcare? What are you beginning to see that we should keep an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, we live in such an exciting time. I will tell you that there's no better time to be alive than this era, and whether it's now or 3 years from now. And just to say why I say that is because, and my answer for you really is that it's probably agentic artificial intelligence. And I'll tell you why. So we, up to now, when you think of the evolution of everything we've done in innovation in our civilization, is that you can put data onto a computer disk, you can put information, but for the first time in human history, you can put onto a computer something that reasons.
Hmm.
And this reasoning, up to now, all reasoning happens between our ears, in our head. We reason as humans, and you put data on a computer, data comes in front of our eyes, and we look at it, and based on our expertise, we reason. And then we do something. But now with generative AI, machines have an ability to reason, whether it's chain of thought, tree of thought. They can actually look in the data, look at the neural network, and do reasoning. And then what with agentic, what it can actually do is not just reason, but it can actually do work. And the whole thing of agentic AI is that it's not just doing reasoning based on a language model or vision model, but actually it has the tools, an API or a MCP interface that can actually do something. So if you think of it, for the first time really in human history, a piece of software can reason, make a decision, and take action. That means that when you look at, for example, in healthcare, what we said earlier, that you have an imbalance between the need for care and the supply of caregivers, that there's a lot of work being done that should be done not by doctors, should be done by something else. And when now you have agentic that actually can do work, essentially what somebody might call AI workers, right? And so this idea that AI can actually do work and support, become a team member in care delivery, this is likely the most disruptive technology that we've ever seen. And by the way, it's not just in healthcare, of course, it can be in any industry, but we're talking about healthcare today. So I think what we're going to see in 3 to 5 years, and this is where if your listeners and audience would leap and think with me, is that in 3 to 5 years, care teams will be composed of humans and AI agents working together. So if you imagine the hospital room of the future, where today, the hospital room of today, there's a patient and a nurse goes in or a doctor goes in. The hospital room of the future, yes, a doctor and nurse will still go in, but all the time there'll be AI agents that are monitoring the room, taking action, doing things, interacting with the patient. And so when I think of healthcare delivery, I realize, to me, agentic AI is one of the forces that will likely reshape and actually improve access to care because it allows doctors and nurses to focus on the highest value work they do, and a lot of the other work will be done by AI agents. By the way, as a final thought, you see that already today in software engineering. In
Yes.
software engineering today, there are software engineering human teams working alongside agentic AI engineer. And in some companies I know that where the teams that are doing the Scrum reviews are actually software engineer humans and AI agents that are actually working together. So we're seeing it in some industries already, and we're going to see it in healthcare, and that will change the face of healthcare.
No, absolutely. I think so. And this has been a great journey for software and for us to learn is that it actually augments the capacity rather than replacing a role. In fact, it actually expands what a human can do in terms of the impact. Just shifting a bit of gears here. I mean, your journey in India has been a long one, right? Both from a presence as a brand as well as here from an innovation center. Will be great to hear in terms of what your journey has been in innovation in India, and also what you laid out seems very, very interesting. And I can see the passion as you think about the coming 5 years. What role can India continue to play in this journey?
Yeah, it's a oh, there's so much happening in India. Look, Philips has been in India for over 97 years. So Philips is a 134-year-old company, and nearly a century we've been in India. So it's a long heritage. We're not newcomers. We've been there a long time, and we'll be there for a long time. We have, I think, something like over 9,000 employees strong across India, and that's about 12.5% of our global workforce. And when you look at our workforce in India, something like 80% are millennials and Gen Z, and quite frankly, almost 28, just 28% are women. And so our footprint in India is large. It's a big part of our company, and we've been there a long time. We'll continue to be there. And the Philips Innovation Campus, that global capability center that we established that 30 years ago. So it's again not a new thing. It's a software powerhouse capability filled with incredible rock star engineers and the data and AI engineers that I talked about. Many are in our Philips Innovation Campus in India, and is a really big center of healthcare engineering expertise for us. And in that Philips Innovation Campus, of the 9,000 people I mentioned in India, about half of them, about 4,500, are actually within the what we call PIC, within Philips Innovation Campus. So we have about half of them in that location. And maybe just a bit more about that location. We have, I think, 36 or so labs, and some of those labs are hardware labs, like I mentioned, the MR, CT,
Mhm.
what we call big iron labs. But we have also many software labs, many data and AI labs. And so the teams that work there are working across the R&D value chain, whether it's in hardware, whether it's in software, and also in project management, in product management, clinical science. So it's not just software engineers, really a full breadth of the engineering there. And maybe I'll add one other thing. We have some amazing products that are really spearheaded out of our Philips Innovation Campus. And I'll give you an example. We have the radiologists use a piece of software called PACS. It's what they read on when they read film. So when a radiologist comes to work, they sit behind this computer and they're looking at the chest X-rays, CT, MR, ultrasound. And about 3, 4 years ago, when we listened to our customers, they said, "We want this from the cloud. We don't want to put it on a disk in a data center. We want it from the cloud." And so we were looking for the best location in Philips to really bring this product to the cloud in partnership with AWS. And we decided that the leadership and the team for Health Suite Imaging, which is what it's called, Health Suite Imaging in the cloud, was best to be put in India in Philips Innovation Campus. And so that team and that product really is led. I mean, it's a global product. It's being used all over the United States and Europe. And that team, the heart of that team, the heartbeat of that team is out of India. And so it's not, it's not just that we have some folks there that are doing. There are entire product sets that are led by leaders out of India on a global product. So it's really a powerhouse location for us. And that's just one. I mean, I could keep going and talk about
I'm
MR
sure. I'm
Smart
sure.
Speed. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great to know. In fact, I mean, it also encourages, in terms of more talent to flow in into new technologies, inspires the young blood in terms of the impact they can create about problems which are global problems, which are not just local problems as well.
Absolutely.
Shez, it has been a real pleasure actually hearing you, learning from you. Before we end, I want to just ask few questions, just to, I mean, when you can reply, you can choose not to reply. But what's your favorite place to visit when you're not working, when you're not solving these important problems?
You know the so it sounds funny, but okay, I'm Canadian. I grew up in Vancouver, and since I'm never there, my favorite place is actually go back to Vancouver. If you've not been to Vancouver, West Coast of Canada is absolutely beautiful. And so my
Yes.
favorite place is to go back to Vancouver. There's no question. If I ever have time, I'll go back there.
Amazing, amazing. One movie that you enjoyed so much that you can watch it again multiple
Uh,
times.
oh boy, you have to give me a second here because not no, this might be a pause because I actually don't watch movies.
It could be a book as well. It could be a book as
Okay, a
well.
book. Well, let me tell you a book. You know what? The book that it's I this book Made to Stick. Made to Stick is a book about how you make ideas stick. And if you're an innovator, one of the things that you have to do is to actually make ideas sticky. And so Made to Stick is a book that I've read many times. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. I mean, probably your audience knows about it, but Made to Stick is a phenomenal book.
Amazing. That is something that's a great recommendation for the audience to just pick up and then read over the coming weekend. This has been an absolute pleasure. I mean, amazing conversation. I want to thank you once again for your time and look
My,
forward to catching up once you are in India very soon.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Amit. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.